It's a moose. I saw a wild moose.
I'm Gary, and this is Coasting with Culture, which is all about combining theme park visits and riding roller coasters with various cultural experiences around the world. Previously, I flew up to Anchorage to meet up with my friends Rick and Keith for exploring around downtown Anchorage, taking a scenic drive, and riding a few rare Alaskan roller coasters. This time, it's a look into the past and present of Alaska's native heritage, and a couple of stops to enjoy a bit more of the natural side of Anchorage. Kicking off this second day, I found a local spot in Eagle River for breakfast called Tinker's Rainforest Deli. This place felt like someone decorated it their way and didn't care what anyone else thinks, and I'm all for it. Along with a variety of brewed beverages, they offer a morning menu with the likes of their breakfast burrito or a good old-fashioned plate of eggs, toast, and your choice of bacon or sausage. While I'm all for trying unique breakfast items, this morning's choice of breakfast staples hit the spot. The next stop came between Eagle River and Anchorage as I visited the Alaska Native Heritage Center, a museum dedicated to sharing and celebrating the way of life for the various native tribes in Alaska. Arriving to the center, you're greeted by Raven the Creator, a sculpture made by John Hoover that depicts the significance of the raven to various local native legends. The center highlights various aspects of the 11 different linguistic groups that make up the different native tribes, subdivided by the regions they're found. The main entrance building offers a gallery where you can find a variety of native artwork available to take home, along with clothing, toys, and books about the local tribes. Behind the entrance desk is the gathering place, where those who work and volunteer at the center give presentations about their respective tribes, where they're found, and the traditions they have. Other presentations offered in the gathering place include demonstrations of tribal songs and dances, as well as games they play. This particular demonstration was performed by members of the Yupik tribe. Just behind the seating area of the gathering place is a theater where various videos about different aspects of native life are presented. And further down in the Hall of Cultures, guests can observe the creations of different tribal crafts and view a number of artifacts from the different Alaskan tribal groups, some of which may look a bit bizarre, but have rather ingenious uses. One set of displays gives an introduction to the 5 main regions, which tribes are found there, and describes their lifestyle. You can also learn a few phrases from their respective languages. To get an even better idea of what life was like for these tribes, there's a tray with model villages, which shows the various styles of homes in which they lived. Some of the most common aspects of all the tribes were their reliance on local wildlife for food, especially the fish that swam in the waters running through and sitting along the coast of their homeland, as shown by the inclusion of fish drying racks in these model villages. Another common trait of the different tribes was the need to find shelter from the harsh cold weather that Alaska winters bring. And while some tribes lived in heavily wooded areas and could build log cabins, others had to be a bit more resourceful and use other materials to build a shelter that looked a little something like you might find in Middle Earth. These shelters often went down into the ground and used narrow passages to help keep the cold out.
To say it's easy to get in and out of here would be a little bit of overstatement. It's definitely not that easy. Oh, probably should crawl.
Inside of these various homes, you'll find some of the items they made for survival, from furs used as clothing to the tools they created for help in daily life. Along the trail, you'll also find the likes of a skeleton from a gray whale and a replica of the kayaks that would have been used by the tribes located on the archipelago that stretches out toward Russia. The group of tribes that really drew my interest were those of Alaska's southeastern panhandle, especially because they shared many characteristics of the coastal tribes of British Columbia and Washington. These tribes used cedar trees for the building of their homes and common spaces in a similar style to the longhouses of the Salish tribes of Washington. And their art is of a similar style and look. While the totem poles and posts are common of these tribes in Alaska and those of British Columbia, there's a bit of a misconception about them for the tribes of Western Washington.
There was someone who had gone into British Columbia and Alaska, saw the totem poles, thought that they were really neat, started bringing them down into Washington to put them on display. Some of them would be sold to people from other parts of the world, for museums, for personal collections. And because of the fact that they were being put on display and they were sold from the Seattle area, people started to make the connection that totem poles were part of Native American culture in Western Washington as well. However, that is not the case. You actually have to go a bit further north.
After learning about the native cultures of Alaska, I wanted to make a few stops that are known for potential wildlife sightings, since we didn't really have any such sightings the day before. The first of these stops was to the stretch of Ship Creek that runs along the north side of downtown. This waterway is one of many in the state where salmon will swim upstream for spawning, much like they do in the waterways of Washington back home. This is a fairly popular fishing spot, as several folks were hoping to catch some of those salmon on their way back. Scanning the creek for salmon seemed to show that 26-foot tidal range of Cook Inlet could make this journey incredibly difficult, as several salmon found out too late. But while seeing some of the mergansers searching for food near the banks of the creek, there was one fish making its way upstream. When it got to a particularly shallow stretch, it seemed to take the lead of those mergansers and fight its way to the other side. With enough time for one final stop before the flight home, I chose to take a walk on the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail. Starting in Kincaid Park, this 11-mile paved trail has several smaller spur trails for exploring this large wooded area to the south of Ted Stevens Airport and leads to the coastline where you can get some beautiful views of Cook Inlet.
I'm already dreading the idea of having to walk back up this hill. At least it'll be a nice walk.
This is a very popular biking path, as many passed by during this stroll, but going by foot is also welcomed. There comes a point where you start to head north and walk along the far western end of the airport's runway, making this a fun location for plane spotting if you're an aviation fan. At this point, I had pretty much accepted that seeing some larger wildlife wasn't likely and was getting close to turning around. But then I heard something in the bushes, and I realized very quickly that it was much larger than a squirrel. Never before had I seen a moose in the wild, and I struggled to fully fathom how this incredibly large animal was just sitting there enjoying a nice lunch.
Holy crap. It's a moose. I saw a wild moose.
After seeing this gal in the wild, I felt that this was a great end to my walk, and began to head back to catch my flight. But it turned out that it really wasn't over yet.
Okay, so I thought this couldn't get any better, but then I ran into a couple of folks further down the trail here who I chatted with a couple of times, and they saw a bull moose who is hanging out in the trees here. Now you can really only see his antlers, but holy smokes, it's cool.
I definitely wasn't about to press my luck and get closer to try and see him better. That was until something even better happened, as I ran into a couple with their daughter and 2 dogs who were going nuts because they smelled something. And that something was another bull moose. This one was much easier to see. Surely that had to be it. There's no way I'd find another moose before going to the airport, right? Well, yes and no. I didn't see another moose. I saw 2 more. Because as I was leaving from the park, I drove right by another female moose, but she wasn't alone, as she had a calf with her. Mama did start to wander further and further away, but the calf eventually crossed the road and started heading in her direction. With several moose sightings to conclude this visit, I think this may go down as one of my favorite endings to a trip.
Buster, my friend, I'm going home with you.
Before hopping on the plane, I decided to stop by Silver Gulch Brewing's restaurant, which offers a great spot for doing some plane watching, including the many cargo 747s that stop in Anchorage for fuel before continuing to Asia or the continental United States. While this brewery didn't have their own brews available, they did have a variety of other local craft options, of which I chose the King Street Pilsner, although I did like their Hefeweizen from the day before better. Add in an appetizer of their bacon parmesan potato wedges, and I was a happy camper, ready to fly with my hometown airline from their namesake back home. It was strange to be flying on a 737-900 without the winglets, although it was a 21-year-old plane, so it's probably slated to be replaced with one of the 737 MAXs. Thanks to my MVP status, I was able to get the complimentary upgrade to first class, making for an enjoyable flight back home. As Cook Inlet and Anchorage became hidden by the clouds, the time came to enjoy Alaska's signature fruit and cheese plate and a nice warm chocolate chip cookie. The rest of this flight was used to transfer photos and video from my phone to the external hard drive until we began our approach to SeaTac, swinging down south along Tacoma before heading back north to the airport.
So this is what it's like to be in a normal-sized car again.
And with the drive back up to Everett, I made it back home, ending another great adventure to a new place. Alaska is incredibly scenic, and I would easily recommend going for a visit. I really enjoyed spending some time with friends, exploring Anchorage and the surrounding area, while attempting to ride some of the more challenging coaster credits to obtain in the United States. Thank you for checking out this series about visiting Alaska. I hope you'll come back soon for more Coasting with Culture.
Damn it, I gotta go to work in the morning.
Thank you for watching this Coasting with Culture video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button below to see future videos here on YouTube, like these ones which you may enjoy as well. Additional content can be found at coastingwithculture.com, and you can also follow Coasting with Culture on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for announcements, previews, and updates. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, take care and safe travels.